Hi, I'm Alex. Thank you for clicking on this video. I'm the Devil's Advocate. I talk about movies, TV, video games, music, whatever I want to talk about on this channel. Today is a very special day because today is the day that Fallout Season 2 had its finale. And I enjoyed Season 1. I was trepidatious going in, just, it's a video game adaptation. Is it going to be good? Are they going to be faithful? Are they going to be able to tell their own story? And I was blown away. And Season 2 kept that momentum going. So in this review, I don't want it to be an hour long, okay? Because one, it's hard to edit. And two, I don't want you to keep it that long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit spoiler-free here in the beginning of what my general thoughts are on the show itself and the season, and then I'm going to go into spoilers, and I will put a big banner on screen so you know spoilers is happening, and I'm going to just talk about the show as if you've seen it. So I'm not going to recap storylines and all that like I do in some of my other reviews. I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet. So, Fallout. If you don't know what Fallout is, it is this. It is a TV show that began in 2024 based on the video game series of the same name. It's post-apocalypse. You don't know what's going on or how the world got that way, but it is that way. And the game is an RPG where you run around, you create your character, and there is an overarching storyline, but there's many side quests. There's a lot of different choices that you can make that impact the ending that you'll get, impact your reputation as like a good guy or a bad guy, how people respond to you based on the actions you've taken in the past. So it's very immersive and tries to be as realistic as possible while keeping a retro-futuristic aesthetic to it. So I just want to point out that the actors, Ella Purnell is the lead, does fantastic. Aaron Moten as Maximus is also amazing. Love Walton Goggins. Always love Walton Goggins' appearance. Kyle MacLachlan is in this show. He's great. Johnny Pemberton, Matthias Arias, Francis Turner. Everyone shows up and does and puts on a clinic on how to act. The characters are the focus. Like any good story, it is character driven. There are many plots, and sometimes it feels a little overwhelming. Sometimes it feels like there's too many plots happening, too many characters that we're focusing on. But if you've watched Game of Thrones, you can handle this because there's way fewer. And speaking of Game of Thrones, that Night of the Seven Kingdoms show, I might have to make a review of that because I'm enjoying that quite a bit. But back to Fallout. Season 1, like I said, I was a little hesitant. Any video game adaptation, I've been burned a lot of times. I remember when Resident Evil came out, and I remember when the Resident Evil reboot came out in 2021. I remember Monster Hunter. I would say this is up there with Mario. And that might seem like a weird comparison because they're very different games. But Mario is a very faithful adaptation of the games and interpreted in a way where they can actually tell a story, tell their own story, and still incorporate all the things you love from Mario that makes it good and makes it identifiable as a Mario property. Not like the 1990 Mario movie, which did not do that. This show, I thought the best adaptation was The Last of Us Season 1. And then I saw Season 2, and my opinion of the show dropped. And then I saw a couple of reviews and made me rethink even Season 1. This show is the best video game adaptation I've ever seen. It is also just one of the best shows on television right now, period, point blank. If you thought The Boys was a little heavy-handed, this is a little subtler. But I put this on the level with Andor. And Y'all know how much I love Andor. Go watch my reviews of Andor. This has the same kind of themes, anti-fascist themes, anti-corporate themes, and is very bleak. Bleaker than Andor was. Bleaker than The Last of Us is. But it doesn't... It portrays that bleakness where you get it and you can feel it, but it doesn't make you wallow in it. It's not about the bleakness of the world, and it's post-apocalypse, like post-nuclear war. Like it is as bleak as you can get in what you may think people are doing in the wasteland, is what it's called, of America. Yes, however, there is humor enough that also doesn't undercut emotional moments, but adds levity and keeps the tone of the show a little lighter than, something like The Last of Us. But again, it balances that tone. It's not like a Marvel movie or even some moments in the Superman movie that I really enjoyed from last year, where there's an emotional moment, and we should sit in this moment and feel the emotions of the characters, but there's some kind of joke happening in the background, or a silly visual that kind of undercuts the tone and keeps it light. That feels like undercutting. Like, let us sit in this emotion. Let us feel what these characters are feeling. This show does that. It lets us feel what the characters are feeling. And I'll get into a little bit more when I talk about spoilers. But it doesn't... in the humor, even the art style, again, it is retrofuturistic. Some of the robots and just the items that they have look goofy and look kind of silly, but within the context of the world it makes sense, so you get used to it and they become normal. And so when an emotional thing happens, a devastating moment happens, you feel that devastating moment regardless of the blue jumpsuits or what, the silly cowboy robot or whatever. So highly recommend watching Fallout. Now season 1 and 2 are complete. You can binge the whole thing on Amazon. Screw Amazon, we hate Amazon, but this show is fantastic, and I encourage y'all to watch this show. So now I'm going to talk about spoilers, and once again I'm not going to recap storylines. I'm just going to talk about it like you've seen it, like you've just finished the finale of season 2 and you're watching this video. So Lucy finding her dad, I thought was going to be a drawn-out, multiple season thing. I'm glad it wasn't. I'm glad they got here to New Vegas. They pretty quickly, halfway through, I guess, this season, they found her dad, Hank. And I like that storyline, that Hank is using these little Robco controlling devices to put in people's necks to make a docile population, a population that doesn't fight. We literally get in one episode the whole entire message of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is, well, if you just let someone else take control of all of humanity, we can work together and there'll be no more wars and there'll be no fighting. And you can see Lucy kind of play with that idea. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. I think that was really in the second to last episode. But I like that she then here put it in her father and is like, I'm going to use this to threaten you, to control you, and then he pushes the button. He says goodbye. And I wonder if he knows, like, he has some kind of backup storage brain where he can re-access it later, or he's like, well, this is essentially me offing myself here. And she knows that, and so we get that emotional moment with her hugging him, sobbing like he's dead, because effectively he is. He doesn't remember her. He doesn't know anything who he is. So, like I said in the spoiler-free section, that's a moment where, yes, we are surrounded in a place called New Vegas. There are Death Claws fighting Maximus over there. She's in a bright yellow dress. There's silly things around. The device itself looks kind of silly and like a cartoon version of a remote control, but it's devastating because it's been normalized for us watching this show. I love the Ghouls arc. I mean, again, Walton Goggins just killing it in this show. I love the past story. I didn't know how much of that we're going to get in season 1. And then by the end of season 1, I was like, oh, they can't not bring this up in season 2. And they don't. And they continue that. A little criticism is that I feel like maybe there was a lot of time spent in that past story. And you kind of knew when it was coming because the ghoul would, like, the episode where he gets stuck on a pole. Lucy kicks him out, punches him out the window, and he gets impaled on a pole. There's definitely like, oh, okay, we're going to flash back, and this whole episode's really going to be, every time we cut to him still impaled, we're going to flash back. And that's fine. It's a storytelling device. But even in that episode, I'm watching that episode, I'm like, all right, this is going to be the whole episode he's stuck on this pole. But it wasn't. He did make a little bit of progress. The super mutant came and took him off, brought him to the hideout, said, hey man, you're going to need friends. There's a war coming. I think that was Ron Perlman, who did the famous line, war never changes, for one of the trailers. And by the way, an aside, I love the way they integrated that line from a trailer for a video game and made it one of the most like heartbreaking, impactful moments of season 1, where Cooper's wife says it to the board, basically saying, hey, if you want to ensure that people invest in vault tech and underground bunkers and robots and Robco and all these things, you have to guarantee that a nuclear war happens. And how do we do that? We'll drop the bombs ourselves. And then she says, war never changes. And Cooper is listening, and his heart breaks. We feel his heart break. It's amazing. I love what they do with past Hank. It's got to be deep fake on Kyle MacLachlan to make him look younger, because he looks like fucking Dale Cooper from Twin Peaks. But it's so cool seeing like how, again, this is the anti-corporate stuff, how middle management, lackeys, suck-ups, ladder climbers only care about doing that without thinking about the implications of what the actual company is doing. I love that Norm got out of the vault. I like that cliffhanger at the end of season 1, and then he gets out here by being like, oh, well, laying a plan is very hard. It takes a long time to get it right, and everything has to go perfectly. But chaos is simple, and just lets out all of management from Vault 31 and uses them to escape, tricks them, lies to them to say, oh yeah, no, I'm the boss now. Bud is gone. And Bud's like, flipped over because he's a little brain in a robot. And that was also kind of terrifying too, before he figured that method of escape, where Bud was like, you're just going to starve in here. I'm going to try and convince you to get into one of the tubes, the cryo tubes, but I'm happy to let you starve. I don't care. And then his way of getting out was, I'll just use all these other people who are around me and trick them into helping me out. The turn when they realize he's not management was kind of freaky. And then I like the payoff in this final episode of the rad roaches coming out and killing all these people. And he saved that one girl who only started a week ago, which again, that's bleak. That idea, just the idea of you start a job and a week in they say, hey, get into this pod. Don't worry about it. This is part of your job. And then the next time you wake up, it's 200 years later. Everyone you know in your entire life is dead. And you just have to deal with like, oh, this is the plan. This is management's plan. That's bleak. That's a terrifying concept. But they keep it light. They keep it. Norm tries to, comfort her. and show his humanity. She shows it back to him. I like that she got out of there with him. I'm interested to see where their story goes. That's another thing that I was saying earlier in the non-spoiler section. There is a lot of characters, and there's a lot of plots, and they could be messy, and it could get confusing like Game of Thrones. But I think they kept it episode by episode, switching it up enough that, okay, now we're doing Maximus, now we're doing Norm, now we're doing Stephanie. Stephanie's thing was also very like, here's a side character in season 1 who's kind of fun, and now she's like a main driving force and antagonist. I like that we reveal that not only is she not Canadian, or she's not American, she's Canadian. Canada was like a concentration camp, which, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump tries to do that now. And then she escapes with her mom. Her mom dies on her way into crossing the border. Again, very prescient for the current times. And her mom's like, don't think of them as people, they're Americans. And that's the last thing she remembers from her mom saying. So it recontextualizes everything we've seen of her up until now. That's why she's always been kind of like overly cheery and never really fazed by anything, because she's been through a hard life. And it already has her mission in her brain. I love that. So I'm very interested to see where Stephanie goes next season. I loved Macaulay Culkin showing up. That was great. I saw an interview he did for Hot Ones where he says he's going to pop up and he's like, oh, you know, pay attention to my character. And the Caesar's Legion episode was earlier in the season. I thought that was all we're going to get. Oh, it's kind of just like this commentary on, you know, wars starting for no reason and the same side fighting each other. You know, civil war as well happening with the Brotherhood of Steel with Kumail Nanjiani. So I thought that was just kind of another thing that we're doing, just another example of how easily wars can start over nothing, and people are dumb, I guess, for fighting wars. War never changes. But they brought it back. They brought it back towards the... I think they could have done a little more to like see them as a threat, because they came off as kind of goofy. You know, especially the way they dispatched them, just by like blowing up the partition in the middle, and they all started fighting in that one episode. So I think they could have done a little bit more to show like, oh no, the Caesar's Legion is actually a problem, and we need to, you know, be wary of them. I think they kind of made up for it in this last episode with Macaulay Culkin deciding that he's the new Caesar. I'm sorry, Kaiser, because they don't know how to pronounce Caesar, and he wants to go to Vegas and take over Vegas and create a palace fit for Kaiser, a Kaiser's palace, if you will, which I thought was very cute. And I hope he continues to be in the series, and maybe, you know, we're setting up a lot for season 3, and maybe, you know, perhaps more seasons after that. The super mutants getting introduced here, and maybe they'll, you know, show up more in season 3. Brotherhood of Steel having a civil war, and then we got the little teaser at the end with the big robot thing. I don't know. I think that's from Fallout 4. I looked it up. I played a little bit of Fallout 4. I played Fallout 3 all the way through, New Vegas a bit, and then Fallout 4 just a touch, because I really didn't like it. So I'm not going to catch all the little Easter eggs. Go to heavy spoilers for that. But I love, again, the emphasis on corporate leaders do not think of people as human beings. They think of you as lab rats for experiments, as we saw with Hank. We see them, they see them as consumers, simply there to hand them money for whatever product they're shitting out, or cannon fodder. And that is how tech CEOs, that is how CEOs think of you. As we have seen now with the latest drop of Epstein files, in those emails, they do not talk about people like human beings. They talk about them like objects, like things, annoyances. This show gets into it, man. in a way that I was not expecting. Even though, you know, a lot of the background flavor text when you're playing the games is like corporations and whatnot, Nuka-Cola, Vault-Tec, Robco. But this show really hammers home and just puts the emphasis on that. I like having that senator protesting in the past story, protesting money in politics, and all the CEOs just walk by her. Everyone walks by her. No one cares. Cooper is the only one who helps her up. It's pointed that she's the only one protesting too. And then at the end, he helps her out. He gives the fusion core to the president. He's thinking, okay, it's the president. Now none of these corporation guys can have it. Not realizing they're all in, you know, the president's subservient to these corporations, not the other way around. And then inadvertently had given it to the Enclave, which I don't know that much about the lore of the games, but I know that the Enclave in season 1 was the reason the whole impetus of the plot happened, right? Lucy got out of the vault, then runs into, what was the guy's name? He was in Saw. He was in the first Saw movie. I forget his name, but he had the fusion core in his neck, and she helps him out, and then has to kill him and take it out. And so that, going back there right at the end of this season to just show that, like, we're going to Colorado, and there's this big compound, and that's where the initial scientists came from. And even seeing him pop up in the past as well and talk to Barbara, and to get a little humanization for Barbara, instead of like leaving it at, oh no, she is just one of these corporate monsters and she's initiating this nuclear war. She confesses to Cooper when they have the talk, which again, so invested in this conversation that they were having. In a show about a post-apocalypse and giant power armor and monsters and stuff, the conversation was like the most tense. That's what's great about this show. And Frances Turner did a fantastic job as Barb. And the conversation, and again, Betty and Stephanie was so great. But the conversation that she has with the scientist in the past, where he's like, you gotta play the game and play it from the inside, and that's how you'll win. There is no saving the world right now, but maybe in the future there's a chance. So somehow he too made it 200 years into the future, and I hope we get that backstory as well. I can't say enough about this show. Again, I don't want to go on and on for hours. I like Maximus' story. I feel like he didn't get that much to do this season, except for, you know, initiate the Civil War. But I do like that he ran back into Thaddeus. Thaddeus had been running like a sweatshop, essentially, for the children. And that Maximus and Kumail show up, and Kumail's like, they're abominations, they have to die. And Maximus stops him. And we get that really great scene in the beginning of the season where we see Maximus's past in Shady Sands, where his father saves his life. And that, what a good man. In that short scene, we see the values that his mother and father have, because the father goes out to help somebody, even though they know bombs are coming. They're trying to help as many people as they can. They put Maximus in the fridge, and he says, like, you are a good boy, and I know one day you're going to grow up to be a good man. And that line has stuck with him the whole time. I thought maybe this actor, Aaron Moten, maybe wasn't that good of an actor. That's what maybe, because he doesn't emote that much. But in this season, boy, we get to see him emote. And I think actually his non-emoting was an acting choice, because this character is naive. This character was immediately, when the whole town was destroyed, was brought in to the Brotherhood of Steel, where they suppress emotions. You're taught to suppress your emotions, be a soldier, and it's a cult as well, so they're going to keep you ignorant and naive. So I think a lot of that is what I was getting from that actor. But I think it was a choice. And in thinking about it like that, I fucks with him, and I think he's doing great. Again, there's so much to talk about, and I'll probably talk about it on This Space. Check out the link in the description for the channel This Space. It's a collective on YouTube, lots of different hosts talking about lots of different things, mostly politics. If you want to get your news, we're live Monday through Thursdays, so check that out. We're doing a subscriber drive this week. We're trying to raise our profile this year. But yeah, man, Fallout is as good as Andor. That's my hot take. As good. Different tone, for sure. Fallout's a little sillier, a little funnier. But the same energy of fuck fascism and fuck corporations. And I fucked with it. I fucked with it heavy. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you enjoyed Fallout season 1 and 2. Let me know, again, what I should be watching. Any recommendations for TV shows? I watched the first episode of Heated Rivalry and then watched reviews of it. It didn't strike me or my wife that well. But like I said, the Game of Thrones, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I'm digging it. I like the tone, the silly, funny tone of that show. And I'm going to keep watching it and make a review when that wraps up. So, folks, take care. Thank you very much. Stick around for tomorrow, a new album reaction, and then another album reaction on either Friday or Saturday. Take care. Bye-bye.